Empress Kalara's stylus bit into the crystalline treaty slab, etching the final sigil of ratification with a hiss of ionized air. The chamber's vaulted dome amplified the sound, drawing murmurs from the assembled counselors. High Minister Varos foremost among them, his iridescent scales flickering with restrained agitation. Famine clawed at the Empire's outer rims. These Terran shipments were the tether to survival, conditional on this farce of a union. She lifted her gaze, the cerulean crown's azure glow pulsing against her brow like a restrained storm. "The Alliance stands," Kilara declared, her voice a blade sheathed in silk. "Human grain flows to our worlds, and in exchange, their envoy binds as ceremonial consort. Let no one question the necessity, or the terms." Varos inclined his head a fraction too stiffly, his tail coils tightening beneath his robes. "Your radiance, the Seventh Fleet endorses your wisdom, yet the purity of Lirathi lineage endures." She cut in, rising from the throne with fluid command. The crown's light refracted through her translucent membranes, casting authority across the hall. "By the crown's mandate and the fleet's unyielding phalanxes, this human serves as liaison. Subordinate to our order, he mends what his kind disrupts. Dismiss him to the outer docks, and we starve our people for pride." The council fell silent, the weight of her fleet's shadow, 3,000 void dreadnoughts orbiting Lirath Prime, pressing like gravity. Kalara's mind raced through vectors. Baros's faction grew bolder, rival suitors whispered in the cloisters, but the granaries demanded obedience. This Jonah Vale, this human, was a tool, nothing more, ceremonial, temporary. The introduction came at dusk, in the sanctum of eternal harmony, where the ceremony array thrummed, or faltered. Kalara watched from the dais as attendants ushered the human through arched gates of living crystal. Captain Jonah Vale moved with unhurried grace, his compact frame clad in Terran blacks and golds, unadorned by the jewels her court demanded. No servile bow, just a measured nod that met her eyes without challenge. "Captain Vale," she intoned, gesturing to the array's central plinth. Hollow veils flickered erratically above it, meant to project the Union's sacral harmonics, symbols of divine concord now glitching into static voids. "Your duties commence. Restore this, as your treaty promises technical accord." Jonah's dark eyes scanned the console, fingers hovering over the interface without haste. Lirathi techs had labored hours prior, their probes yielding only error cascades. He murmured something in his guttural tongue, self-briefing perhaps, then interfaced a slim tool from his belt. "Understood, Empress." "May I?" She waved assent, masking curiosity beneath regal poise. The array whined, veils shredding into digital storms. Counselors shifted, Varos's vents flaring with subtle heat. Humans were primitives, fleetless scavengers. What could this one do? Vale's hands danced across panels, splitting attention. One traced diagnostic runes, another synced a portable emitter, while his voice narrated calmly to the hovering protocol drone. "Power flux at Node 7. Rerouting through auxiliary manifolds. The lattice compensates for plasma drift, clever design." He adjusted a tertiary relay, eyes flicking between readouts, then exhaled steadily as the veils stabilized. Harmonics bloomed, azure spirals weaving Lirathi sigils with Terran fractals, flawless. Gasps rippled through the sanctum. A tech's crest quivered in awe. Even Baros paused, mandibles clicking softly. Clara felt a flicker. Impossible efficiency, multitasking as if breathing. Lirathi minds excelled in singular precision, yet this human juggled cascades without strain. "Functional," she stated flatly, quelling the murmurs. "Adequate for ceremony." Bale stepped back, wiping his hands on his tunic. "Glad it holds. Your engineers built redundancy I wouldn't have spotted first pass. Solid work." His tone held no boast, just fact. Eyes meeting hers with quiet respect. The council chamber reconvened at cycle's end, tension coiling like Varos's tail. Kalara sensed the shift as he rose, projecting a holoslate etched with legalese. "Radiance, the humans display intrigues, but precedent demands safeguards. I circulate this motion. Strict segregation clauses in the treaty. No shared quarters, no unmonitored access to inner courts, violate Lirathi protocols, and the Union voids. Fleet command, or no." Murmurs swelled, allies nodding. Kalara's crown warmed against her skin, a reminder of sacral steel. Varos played the long game, leveraging religious edicts to erode her pact. Dismissal would fracture the court. Concession invited erosion. "The motion is noted, Minister, but the envoy remains. Assign observers. Palace compound only." compressed the distance for duty, not dalliance. Barros's scales dulled a shade, surprise etching his frills. As you decree, Radiance. Yet the archives. Speak later, she commanded, adjourning with a sweep of her mantle. Her decision hung. Proximity without intimacy. A calculated bind. Veil proved useful once. Repetition might stabilize the arrays plaguing her fleets, but utility did not equal worth. Alone in her scriptorium, Clara summoned the archivist by a neural link. Hollow images of dusty tomes materialized. The lead custodian, a wizened Lyrithy with faded cerulean markings. Bowing low. Radiance, re-examine precedents on foreign consorts, she ordered. Voice low. The words, a private pivot. All eras, all sects, cross-reference with technical pacts. Discreetly. The archivist's vents cycled surprise. The Crown's archives hold scant on primates, but, as commanded. He withdrew, tendrils flickering. Kilara paced, crowns glowed dimming to match her thoughts. Varos saw dilution. She saw levers. The human had mended the array in breaths, spotting patterns her text chased in cycles. Adaptability born of, what? Famine ships inbound, arrays humming. Stability. Yet as observers trailed Veil to his cordoned wing, she glimpsed him through a viewport, already sketching interface mods on a slate, uncomplaining under scrutiny. A subtle unease stirred. Lyrathian durance bent under ritual strain. This human pressed on, resilient. Her empire teetered on grain and pride. Could one envoy tip it? Varos's motion lingered in council feeds, gaining traction. Quilara intercepted a private comm from a rival suitor, Lord Thalix, pledging fleet support if the primitive taint dissolved. She archived it unread, focus sharpening on the archivist's preliminary slate, ancient texts hinting at outer consorts who bolstered tech during the Void Wars. Utility reframed. In the compound's atrium, Veil crossed paths with his observers, 2 stoic guards, their spears humming. He nodded, offering a ration bar from his kit. Long shift, share if your protocols allow. They declined rigidly, but one frill twitched. Amusement? Pack instinct. Unbidden, Talara watched via drone feed, propriety cracking at the edges. Strength demanded adaptation. Perhaps his too. The Union's first right loomed at dawn, harmonics tested, courts watching. If he faltered, Varos pounced. If not, she turned from the display. Crown steady. Empire first. Always. But as night deepened, the array's hum echoed palace-wide, a human echo in Lyrithy stone. Observers reported Veil sleeping lightly, already querying palace nets on Lyrithy harmonics, learning. Unprompted. Kalara's tail coiled thoughtfully. Subordinate, yes. But not inert. Varos schemed in shadows. She would counter with precedent and proof. The human stayed, close, watched, useful. For now, dawn's light pierced the sanctum veils, the right array pulsing stronger than cycles past. Kalara descended, Veil waiting at the plinth, tools ready. Shall we, Empress? She inclined her head. The barest fracture in formality. Proceed, Captain. Council eyes widened as harmonics wove anew, flawless under joint hands. Lyrithy precision meeting human weave. Varos's motion faltered unspoken. Whispers turned to queries. What else hid in this ceremonial bond? Kalara felt the shift, subtle as crown light on scales. Duty compressed distance, utility bred questions. Her empire hungered, for grain, and perhaps more. High Minister Varos rose from his dais, his scales rippling with the calculated gleam of polished obsidian, and leveled a claw toward the holographic charter flickering at the council's heart. The ratification of this union cannot proceed without contingency, he declared, voice threading the chamber like a venom-laced wire. Empress, if the human's presence sows instability, as whispers from the granary audit already suggest, let us name Lord Thalrix of the 7th Fleet as provisional consort. His bloodline secures succession. The human offers only transience. Kalara's mandibles clicked once, a fractional restraint against the tide of murmurs from the faction leaders. The cerulean crown weighed heavier in such moments, its sacral glow pulsing faintly against her brow ridges, demanding she parse loyalty from ambition. Varos's proposal was no mere safeguard, it was a blade slipped into the ratification's throat, formalizing doubt into law. Around the oval table the fleet admirals shifted, some nodding to Thalrix's empty seat, others glancing at her with the feigned neutrality of courtiers who scented blood. She felt the shift, subtle as crown light on scales. Duty compressed distance. Utility bred questions. Her empire hungered for grain, and perhaps more. "Provisional measures are for tempests, High Minister," she replied, her tone a silken command that stilled the chamber. "The alliance stands ratified unless proven void by deed, not speculation. Lord Thalic serves the fleet admirably. He need not audition for shadows." Varos bowed, but his eyes lingered, promising further coils. Dismissed, the council dispersed into the vaulted halls of the palace spire, where air recyclers hummed with the faint tang of ionized ozone, a reminder of systems strained by endless diplomacy. Kalara turned to her steward, Lyra, a wiry functionary whose loyalty was etched in decades of unobtrusive service. "The human envoy, Captain Vale. Divert him to the environmental regulators. An audit, full spectrum. Let us test if his technical liaison claims hold beyond grain silos." Lyra's frills quivered in surprise. "Majesty, the regulators are stable. Routine maintenance. Precisely why it suits him," Kalara cut in. "Idleness breeds rumor. Task him." Jonah Vale received the order via wrist implant as he navigated the palace's labyrinthine service corridors. His human stride unhurried despite the alien geometry that twisted bulkheads into fractal unease. The Lyrithi air tasted metallic on his tongue, laced with particulates his suit's filters flagged as suboptimal, but he ignored the alert focus first. Audit the regulators? Straightforward enough. He'd patched worse on frontier outposts with half the schematics. He dropped into the sub-level access without fanfare, toolkit slung over one shoulder, pulling up the palace net on his augmented display. Lyrithi engineering was elegant, fractal vents branching like neural webs, but the diagnostics screamed oversight. Pressure anomalies in Sector 7B, masked by cascading redundancies. Humans called it duct tape logic. Here, it was sacred protocol. Jonah multitasked seamlessly, mapping flows while cross-referencing historical logs, spotting a pattern in contamination spikes that correlated to court illnesses a decade past. Not a leak, but a valve, seized half open, filtering toxins just enough to stave off collapse. Kneeling amid the humming conduits, he isolated the node with a jury-rigged clamp from his kit. Human alloy biting into Lyrithi cerametal where protocols deemed it impossible. 20 minutes of steady torque, recalibrating seals with a thermal lance, improvised from spare emitters, and the valve side open, purging a decade's grime in a sterile hiss. Air quality metrics jumped 14% instantly. No fanfare, just data. He logged it, wiped his hands, and sealed the panel. Job done. Word reached Kalara and her private solar as she reviewed fleet dispositions, Lyra bursting through the iris doors with uncharacteristic haste. "Majesty, the human. Sector 7B. He repaired the old valve. Contaminants neutralized. Medbays report baseline stability already." Kalara's crest flared involuntarily, a physiological betrayal she quelled with a slow exhalation. A decade-old flaw, buried under layers of ritual maintenance, breached by off-world hands in under an hour. She summoned the logs via neural link, scans confirming, pure flow, no residuals. Utility indeed. Not fluke, but foresight. Closed-door briefings, she ordered. Voice level as glacial ice. Pull engineering archives on human practices. Divert 2 analysts from auxiliary duty. Monitor his every schematic upload, discreetly. Lyra hesitated, frills twitching. Resources are thin. With the ratification, redirect from Varus's purity audits. Kilara snapped, propriety cracking just enough to reveal the steel beneath. This is no extravagance, it's prudence. By Eve cycle, Varus had struck back. His legal petition, invoking the ancient Veil statutes, edicts against miscegenation etched in the Empire's sacral code, leaked to the clergy like nectar to drones. Hollow feeds erupted across the capital spires, robed hierarchs decrying the dilution of cerulean blood, petitioners marching with banners equating the human alliance to heresy. Public channels buzzed, pressure mounting on the palace like atmospheric buildup. Kalara watched from her command dais, crown pulsing in sync with her rising ire. Varos's claw marks were everywhere. He'd timed it to fracture the ratification's fragile seal. The council reconvened at her summons. Factions polarized. Varos's traditionalists baying for annulment, moderates wavering. The statutes demand purity for succession, Varos pressed, holographic precedents swirling. The humans' repairs, if true, are parlor tricks. What of our divine mandate? Kalara silenced him with a raised claw, her gaze sweeping the chamber. Public objection be damned. Competence was its own mandate. Captain Vale is granted limited access to the strategic workshops. Fleet-grade materials, under supervision. Let deeds answer petitions. Murmurs crested like a wave, Varos's scales paling to ash-gray shock. Thalrix, now present, leaned forward. Majesty, the workshops house crown relics. And now, a liaison who mends what our rituals overlook, she countered, strength unyielding. Deny this, and we invite clergy chaos. Grant it, and we forge proof. As the council dissolved into fractious debate, Kalara signaled Lyra aside in the antechamber's shadowed recess. The steward approached, datapad clutched like a shield. Add Captain Vale to the palace security roster, Kalara instructed, words precise as a targeting reticule. Full oversight clearance. Workshops, regulators, auxiliary bays, legitimize it as tactical integration. Lyra's eyes widened, frills splaying in disbelief. He, a human, on the roster? The implications? Tactical recalibration, Kalara affirmed, her voice softening fractionally. A personal thread weaving through the political weave. Distrust unchallenged breeds weakness. Monitor, yes, but enable. Her empire demanded more than purity. It required adaptation. Far below, Jonah emerged from the sublevel's toolkit lighter, unaware of the storms his quiet fixity had stirred. A steward approached, frill subdued. Captain Vale, your roster update. Workshops await. He nodded, humble curiosity lighting his features. Lead on. What's breaking next? In the solar's glow, Kalara watched the feeds shift. Clergy petitions clashing against hollow replays of purified airflows. A repaired valve and a legal gauntlet. Her court forced to reassess not just a human's place, but the Empire's very breath. Duty compressed further. Questions bloomed into possibility. Alarms pierced the solar chamber like fractured crystal, red pulses flooding the holoscreens. Kalara's crest flared involuntarily as the feed locked onto a drifting trade convoy, Lyrathi freighters listing in the void, their relay node shattered, debris blooming like blood in the black. Sabotage, the comms officer rasped, frills quivering. Cathari signatures on the breaching charges. Rival fleets are already vectoring embargoes, trade lanes closing within the hour. Kalara rose from her throne days, the cerulean crown's glow casting azure shadows across her scales. The Empire's breath had steadied from one crisis, now this. Pharos was at her side in an instant, his robes whispering, eyes narrowed to slits. Majesty, the Council convenes now. This is no accident. The Cathari test our alliances, and whispers of your consort's influence already poison the nobles. She silenced him with a raised talon striding to the central projector. The convoy's manifest scrolled. Iridium ores for the forges. Neural lattices for the fleets. Disruption here starved shipyards. Invited invasion. Her mind raced through contingencies, but the relays demanded hands-on repair. Delicate quantum threading that rope protocols couldn't salvage mid-crisis. Jonah. He had proven it before, with that valve jury rig, but command a sortie? Tradition barred outsiders from fleet ops. The council chamber thrummed with tension as she entered, nobles' crests erect in agitation, Varos already at the podium. The humans' meddling invites this, he declared, his voice a honed blade. Ceremonial envoy, yet he tinkers with our sacred flows. Now Cathari blades fall. Embargoes will cripple us unless we purge foreign taint and rally pure Lyrathi blood. Murmurs rippled, frills fluttering in agreement. Kalara felt the weight of their stares, the crown's mandate a cool pressure on her brow. Duty demanded stability, sentiment none. Yet Jonah's quiet competence lingered in her thoughts. Unbidden, she stepped forward, voice resonant. High Minister, your zeal serves, but facts do not. The relays require stabilization. Lyrathi engineers falter on adaptive weaves under fire. Captain Vale will lead the sortie. Gasps echoed. Varos's scales paled. Majesty, precedent forbids it. No non-Lyrathi commands our voidsman. He is consort in name only. Name bears weight when forged in action. Kalara cut in, her tone steel veiled in silk. I authorize it. Dispatch the pinnace. Empire first. Varos bowed stiffly, but his eyes burned. As the council dissolved into fractious debate, Kalara retreated to the command nexus, watching the pinnace launch. Jonah boarded with a squad of 12 Lyrathi engineers, their harnesses clinking, tools gleaming. No fanfare, just purpose. From the pinnace's cramped bay, Jonah Vale gripped the crash rail. Zero grip dimming him toward the lead freighter's husk. The Lyrathi crew eyed him sidelong, frills half lowered in skepticism. Mandibles clicking unease. Captain? Engineer Lara ventured, her voice translator harsh. Relays are quantum locked. Standard purge fails under sabotage residue. He nodded, pulling up the schematics on his wristpad, cross-referencing Cathari charge patterns with Terran field manuals. Residue interferes with the cascade. Will multitask. Team A vents the debris field, while B and C thread bypasses. Lyra, your squad handles the physical mounts. Your precision's unmatched. I'll sync the logics from the hub. They blinked, four eyes widening in tandem. Humans juggled one crisis at a time, or so the briefings claimed. Jonah didn't notice their stares. Fatigue was a distant hum after 18 hours on prior shifts. He directed them fluidly, voice calm amid klaxons. Arak, reroute power from aux thrusters. Pattern match the flux echoes. It's like reading enemy fire trails. The engineers moved, but doubt lingered in their hesitant grips. Debris pinged the hull as they evied, tethers snaking. Jonah floated coreward, gloved hands dancing over shattered nodes, improvising a fractal weave from scavenged conduit, human creativity bridging Lyrathi rigidity. See the anomaly? It's not random. Cathari layered harmonics. Invert the phase here. Lyra's frill spiked in shock as the relay hummed alive. How? Our sims predicted cascade failure. Connected the dots, Jonah said simply, already pivoting to the next node, coordinating via suit cone while monitoring drift vectors. Hours blurred. Lyrathi limbs trembled from strain, but he pressed on, adapting to their tool interfaces mid-flow, bonding over shared curses at stubborn seals. Back in the palace, Varus seized the moment. He activated the public nexus, broadcasting to noble halls and fleet channels. Behold the overreach. A human commands Lyrathi souls in peril. Our sacred voids profaned. Rally, nobles! Petition the crown's purity. Annul this alliance before it dooms us. Holofeeds captured the pinnace amid wreckage, Jonah's form silhouetted against sparking relays. Conservative crests flared across the empire, petitions flooding Kalara's queue. She watched unmoving as Varos's rhetoric swelled. Her talon tapped the armrest, propriety cracking under the strain of choice. Intervene now, and precedent shattered fully. Wait, and risk all. The pinnace docked 12 hours later. Relays stabilized, convoy limping home under escort. Engineers disembarked. Frills high, mandibles grinding pride. Jonah followed, suit scarred, face etched with quiet exhaustion he ignored. Lyra saluted him openly. Captain, your command we endured the weave. Impossible, yet done. Kalara met them in the hangar bay, crown aglow. Varos lurked at the edge, nobles clustered behind. Report, she commanded. Relays nominal majesty, Jonah said, bowing precisely. Convoy secured. Cathari signatures confirmed. Likely probed our defenses. Varos surged forward. Luck, not skill. The human's gambit. Results, Kalara interrupted, voice carrying like thunder. Not luck, minister. Operational triumph. She turned to the assembly. Formal commendation, Captain Vale and the sortie team. Medals struck at dawn. Transmit to all fleets. Nobles stirred. Frills twitching. Shock mingling with reluctant nods. Varos's mandibles clenched, but he bowed. Jonah blinked, surprise flickering before humility settled. Team effort, majesty. Lyrathi precision made it possible. She held his gaze a beat longer, a personal warmth threading the formality. Then, to her intelligence wing lead, broaden evaluations. Merit beyond lineage, track adaptability, resilience. Command under crisis, human metrics included. Empire evolves, or stagnates. As the bay cleared, Kalara lingered with Jonah, voices low amid humming serbos. You broke their doubt today. Steady hands, that's all, he replied, a faint smile cracking his fatigue. Yours gave the chance. Varos watched from shadows, plotting coils tightening, but in the hangar's glow, alliance roots deepened, human ingenuity woven into Lyrathi steel, embargoes thwarted, empire breathing freer. Yet whispers grew. What precedents would fracture next? Empress Kalara's fingers tightened on the arm of her throne as the holographic dispatch materialized unbidden in the heart of the War Council chamber. The Caliph Dominion denounces our Terran Accord as a dilution of stellar sovereignty. The envoy's voice crackled from the projection. His scaled face twisted in feigned outrage. They extend preferential trade overtures to High Minister Varos's delegation, directly courting the traditionalist bloc. Murmurs rippled through the assembled admirals and ministers, Varos himself rising with measured poise from his shadowed alcove, his robes whispering like serpents over stone. Your Radiance, this is provocation masked as diplomacy. The Caliph seek to fracture us, but their terms favor Lirathi purity, reject the human entanglement, and their markets open wide. Kalara's gaze, sharp as a void lance, pinned him. The cerulean crown hummed faintly against her brow, its ancient neural links pulsing with the fleet's distant telemetry. She would not yield ground here, not with the Seventh Fleet's resupply chain still fragile from Jonah's recent ingenuity. They condemn what stabilizes our borders, Varos. Note the timing. Their announcement coincides with your faction's latest petitions. Dispatch our analysts. I want provenance on every word. Before Varos could retort, the chamber doors hissed open. Captain Jonah Vale strode in, his Terran uniform stark against the iridescent walls, a data slate clutched in one calloused hand. No fanfare, no deference beyond a crisp nod. His presence alone stirred the room's tension like a gravitic eddy. Kalara felt a flicker of anticipation. The human moved with the quiet assurance of one who bridged worlds without fanfare. Your Radiance, Jonah said, voice steady, projecting the slate's contents onto the central holotable. Spectral overlays bloomed. A manifesto, its text condemning the accord in florid Lirathi script, laced with Kyalith idioms. This surfaced in the undergrid feeds yesterday, attributed to your traditionalists. But the metadata doesn't match. Varos leaned forward, crests flaring subtly. Captain Vale presumes much on forge detection alone. Lirathi script evolves. Patterns don't lie, Jonah cut in, not rudely, but with the precision of a diagnostic probe. He swiped the projection, isolating watermark anomalies, fractal distortions in the glyph matrices, invisible to standard Lirathi parsers but screaming under human-tuned algorithms. These distortions repeat a Caliph cipher sequence, buried in the rendering layers. Like a digital tattoo, I cross-referenced with embargo shipment logs from their border stations. Same anomalies on 3 falsified manifests we intercepted last cycle. The council fell silent as the overlays aligned. Threads of code linking the manifesto to Caliph proxy accounts funneled through neutral relays. Jonah's fingers danced across auxiliary inputs, multitasking feeds from palace security cams, trade ledgers, and even atmospheric sensor drifts, pinpointing 2 middlemen in the capital's merchant quarter, their comms spiking with Varos's aides hours before release. Admiral Lervex Kalara's fleet second tilted his head, bioluminescent veins pulsing in reluctant awe. How did you isolate the ciphers? Our cryptographers flagged only surface inconsistencies. Jonah shrugged, humble as ever, eyes on the data. Grew up debugging field rigs on frontier outposts. Humans juggle noisy signals. Makes us good at seeing the echoes others tune out. No boast, just fact, delivered as he layered a third analysis. Behavioral patterns from the middlemen's past dealings, predicting their next moves. Kalara rose, her voice a silken command that quelled the chamber. Guards, arrest the named operatives, quietly, no spectacle. Secure their devices intact. Whispers of protest rose. Diplomatic fallout with Caliph proxies could ignite trade skirmishes, but she silenced them with a raised hand. The crown's glow intensifying. The treaty's core endures. Varos, your faction will submit full comms logs for review. This interference ends now. Varos bowed, coils of calculation tightening behind his eyes, but complied. As the guards departed, Jonah met Kalara's gaze, a brief shared spark amid the intrigue. Partnership, not pawnship. The arrests rippled outward like a suppressed shockwave, but the clergy struck harder. That eve, in the sanctum of eternal tides, the elders convened uninvited, their robes woven with crownstone threads that shimmered like captured nebulae. Elder Thalor, voice resonant with centuries, invoked the ancient codex before a throng of petitioners. The cerulean line forbids foreign seed. Offspring of Terran blood cannot inherit the crown's mandate. Succession dissolves the accord by divine precedent. The crowd in the grand atrium swelled, chants echoing off vaulted ceilings. Varos lingered at the periphery, his presence a subtle accelerant. Kalara, alerted mid-briefing, swept into the sanctum flanked by her honor guard, Jonah at her side, not as consort, but counsel. His inclusion, a deliberate signal. Thaler's eyes narrowed at the human. This one taints the air of judgment radiance. Captain Vale advises on threats that cross borders as deftly as your lore spans eras. Kalara replied, her tone regal ice over warming steel. She ascended the dais, crown ablaze. I refuse ratification of this summary. Convene the High Tribunal for legal review, full audit of precedents, open to all castes. Gasps rippled, the elders' crests dimmed in shock. To defy clerical fiat publicly was to crack the facade of divine harmony. Yet Kalara stood unyielding, her authority a bulwark. The crown commands fleets and fates. It does not bend to whispers of impurity when empires teeter. As the crowd dispersed in stunned murmurs, Jonah leaned close, voice low. Bold move. Their networks are already lighting up, protests forming in the lower spires. She turned, propriety fracturing just enough for a ghost of a smile. You uncovered their strings first, Jonah. Without your patterns, I'd chase shadows. His resilience steadied her. Optimism forged in crises she could only imagine. By dawn cycle, Kalara summoned her inner guard captain in the strategy vault, Jonah present for the first time at such depths. Hollow maps of the capital flickered, threat vectors pulsing red from clergy sympathizers and Varos's emboldened allies. Expanded protocols, she decreed, voice brooking no dissent. Captain Vale receives Tier 1 protections, full escort in public transit, neural jammers on his quarters, and include him in all strategic briefings henceforth. His insights integrate our defenses. The guard captain saluted, vents flaring in surprise. Radiance, protocol reserve such for bloodline heirs. Times evolve, Kalara interjected, eyes locking on Jonah. He has earned it through deeds, not birth. The Empire thrives on such alliances. Jonah nodded. No false humility, just quiet gratitude. I'll pull double shifts on the threat models if needed. We've got this. In that vault's glow, amid coiling plots and celestial stakes, Kalara felt the shift solidify. Not mere duty, but a tether of mutual strength. Varos's shadows lengthened, clergy precedents loomed for review. Kalith envoys circled like predators, yet with Jonah's unassuming brilliance woven in, a resolve burned brighter, the alliance's roots delving deeper into contested soil. Whispers of fracture persisted, but so did the quiet forging of something unbreakable. Kalara's voice rang across the tribunal chamber, her words a blade honed for the border envoy's ears. The leer of the Empire yields no sovereignty to Kalith incursions, yet alliance with Terra fortifies our flanks, not weakens them. The holographic dais hummed beneath her, projecting fleet dispositions to the assembled delegates, their iridescent scales flickering under the vaulted lights of the orbital station. A tremor shuddered through the deck plating, subtle at first, then sharpening into a whine that clawed at the air. Alarms pierced the chamber. Security net breach, cascade failure imminent. Kalara's crest flared instinctively, her hand snapping to the dais controls as the envoys recoiled, their delegation's honor guard drawing phased lances in panic. From the shadowed gallery, Jonah Vale exploded into motion. He had lingered at the chamber's edge, a quiet sentinel in his Terran uniform amid Larathi finery, but now his eyes locked on the readouts flickering across his wrist link. Security net reroute, now! He barked into his comm, voice steady as he sprinted toward the central dais, fingers flying over a jury-rigged interface he'd patched into the station's grid during setup. Multitasking without pause, he cross-referenced the anomaly patterns. Plasma conduit sabotage, timed explosive bloom, and shunted power from auxiliary shields to isolate the blast vector. The chamber erupted. A section of the outer ring buckled, venting atmosphere in a roar as an explosion bloomed orange against the void-shielded viewports. Shrapnel sleeted toward the dais, but Jonah's cordon held. He'd yanked a squad of Lyrathi guards into a wedge formation, their lances forming an energy lattice that deflected the debris. Hold the line, flank left, seal the breach. His commands wove through the chaos, adapting the Lyrathi's rigid protocols on the fly, turning their phalanx into a fluid barrier. One guard staggered, crest dimming from a glancing hit, hauling the alien upright while barking overrides to the net. Kalara watched it unfold, her pulse a war drum beneath regal calm. Jonah's form cut through the smoke like a shadow unbound. Human endurance on display, no flinch of fatigue as he juggled shield harmonics, guard positions, and evac vectors. The blast's core fury spent itself meters short, contained by his improvisation. Envoys gaped, their whispers a tide. The soft skin redirected the net? Impossible. As silence clawed back, Kalara rose, crown gem pulsing azure authority. Tribunal adjourned. All personnel, secure the chamber. Captain Vale, your assessment. Her tone brooked no delay, eyes meeting his across the haze. Trust flickering there, unbidden. Jonah straightened, wiping soot from his brow, breath even despite the sprint. Coordinated hit, sabotaged conduits from engineering sublevels. Remote trigger, likely insider access, no Caliph signatures, this reeks of internal play. He glanced at the guards, nodding respect. Your lances saved the dais. Joint work. She inclined her head, the gesture imperial yet laced with something warmer. Detain all sub-level access personnel from the last cycle. High Minister Varos is suspended from duties pending full inquiry, no exceptions. Her decree broadcast instantly, rippling through the station's comms. Gasps rippled from the envoys. Suspending Varos struck at the court's heart, a purge that screamed stability over favoritism. In the antechamber, as medics swarmed and techs sealed breaches, Kalara drew Jonah aside, her voice low amid the clamor.
You saw the patterns first.
Explain. Conduit overloads don't cascade like that naturally, he said, pulling up a hollow schematic on his link, fingers tracing links with effortless precision. Someone looped the failsafes, classic bypass but layered with false telemetry to mimic enemy sabotage. Blame shifts to outsiders, or me. His eyes met hers, humble candor cutting through protocol. We've got prints on the access logs if we move fast. Her crest brushed his shoulder in passing, a Lyrathi mark of alliance, propriety cracking just enough. Then we move. Word of the attempt spread like void fire through the court feeds. Varos, confined to his spire quarters under guard, wasted no breath. From his console he unleashed the smear. Holographic dispatches to faction heads, clergy allies, and border lords. The human's technical liaison role masked sabotage. Witness the net reroute, a Terran ploy to place savior and clutch the throne. Kalara's consort engineers her near death for favor. The treaty crumbles under such treachery. Court channels ignited. Soft-skin sorcery, one lord declaimed in a viral clip, scales flushing crimson. Varos speaks truth, the purge shields the guilty. Pressure mounted, petitions flooding Kalara's dais for Jonah's isolation treaty annulment. Envoys whispered of withdrawing support, Caliph shadows probing the fracture. Chilara faced the storm in the Grand Hall. Throne elevated amid swirling hollow displays of the tribunal wreckage, lords and clergy packed the tears, Varos's absence a void pulsing accusation. She let the murmurs crest, then silenced them with a raised talon. Accusations fly like shrapnel, yet facts endure. Captain Vale thwarted this strike, not authored it. He stands at the investigation's heart. Murmurs peaked. A clergy voice pierced. Empress, precedent demands purity. Precedent bends to survival, she cut in, voice steel wrapped in silk. Jonah Vale leads the probe, with Fleet Inquisitor Lyrak in my direct oversight. His patterns unveiled the plot. Lyrath the honor demands we heed them. Risky, publicly elevating the human amid smears courted rebellion. Yet her gaze swept the hall, strength unyielding, signaling trust forged in fire. Jonah stood at her flank, posture relaxed but alert, fielding Inquisitor queries with patient clarity. Log traces point to 3 insiders, cross-referenced with duty rosters. We'll pull manifests now. No boast, just work. Adaptability shining as he synced Terran analytics with Lyrathi databases. Spotting overlaps the alien's rote scans missed. Lyrak's crest brightened, a rare thaw. Your linkages. Efficient. We proceed. As the hall dispersed under purge edicts, Kalara summoned Jonah to the command vault, fleet readouts orbiting them like captive stars. Varos's faction tightens. We counter with proof and preparation. Her fingers danced over controls. 7th Fleet, initiate joint defense rehearsals. Captain Vale's input integrates fully. Shared command protocols effective immediately. The order beamed to the Armada. A formal tether. Jonah nodded, already pulling schematics. Start with skirmish sims. Your lance arrays pair well with our drone swarms. I'll tweak the net for hybrid response. Multitasking again. He layered in endurance drills, pushing sims through cycles without pause while reading her subtle cues. The flicker of approval in her eyes. They worked into the cycle's depths. Kalara at his side, her shrewd mind probing his innovations. Your humans endure such vigils without crest fade? Comes with the job, Jonah replied, humble grin cracking the tension. Coffee helps. Ever try it? Brews stronger bonds than treaties sometimes. A ripple of amusement creased her scales, humor bridging the gulf. Then brew for the fleet, Captain. Let them taste this human edge. Fleet reports flooded in, rehearsals flawless, Lyrathi captains murmuring awe at the seamless meld. The soft-skins patterns anticipate voids we overlook, one transmitted, crest vivid. Varys's smears faltered against evidence, insider confessions trickling under purge pressure, fingers pointing to his network. In the vault's hush, Kilara turned to Jonah, propriety yielding to connection. You anchor what duty alone could not. This partnership, it endures. His hand brushed hers, a human gesture of quiet solidarity. Mutual, Empress. Your fleet's precision makes it sing. Shadows lingered, Varos's allies regrouping, clergy precedent sharpening, but the purge bound them tighter, joint command a beacon. In that forge of crisis, ruler and envoy wove strength unbreakable, alliance roots gripping deeper amid the storm. Alarm klaxons shattered the fragile calm of the Imperial Citadel's command spire, crimson lights pulsing across Kilara's vision like arterial blood. She gripped the armrests of her throne console, the cerulean crown's neural links humming with fleet telemetry, as the first enemy salvos breached the outer orbitals. Report, she commanded, her voice a blade of ice amid the chaos. High Admiral Lurvex pivoted from the holographic projection, his iridescent scales paling to ash-gray shock. Empress, it's the Krell Dominion. 3 battle groups, slipping through the veil rift on Varos's predicted vector. They're targeting the capital grid directly, exploiting the schism in our defenses. Internal saboteurs have jammed half the shield emitters. Varos, the name coiled in her gut like venom, even as she noted his conspicuous absence from the chamber. The purge had caged him, but his tendrils reached far. The invasion was no coincidence, timed to the court's fractures, to her contested union. Jonah stood at her side, his human frame steady amid the Lyrathi officer's frantic gestures, eyes already scanning the flickering holomap. Empress, Jonah said quietly, leaning close without presumption. Your perimeter arrays are optimized for fleet-scale engagements, but they're blind to microjumps. Krell skirmishers are threading the gaps. I can node them. Coordinate ground batteries with your orbital lances using adaptive fire links. Kilara met his gaze, the weight of the crown pressing her decision. Court orthodoxy whispered retreat to the core worlds, preserving purity over peril. But survival demanded more. Do it, Captain. Unified spectrum. Your protocols. Overlay ours. He nodded once, humble efficiency in the motion, and dove into the auxiliary terminal. His fingers flew across the interface, adapting Terran encryption algorithms to Lyrathi syntax on the fly, multitasking fleet reallocations while murmuring adjustments to gunnery teams via open comms. Lyrvex's crest flared in disbelief. Human? Integrating with 7th Fleet maneuvers? Our systems reject foreign matrices. Watch, Jonah replied evenly. No boast, just fact. Pattern recognition lit his mind. Krell vectors mirrored ancient pirate raids from Coalition archives, predictable if you cross-referenced stellar drift. He wove human endurance protocols into the command net, rotating crews without fatigue signals, sustaining fire rates Lyrathi physiology couldn't match unaided. Within minutes, defense nodes bloomed across the holomap, synchronized pulses lancing out to shred the incoming swarms. Explosions bloomed silently in the void, Krell corvettes crumpling under interleaved barrages. Kilara felt the shift through the crown, a symphony of retaliation, her fleet's majestic broadsides amplified by Jonah's improvised lattice. Officers exchanged glances, scales rippling with reluctant awe. Impossible, murmured Captain Zilara, her subordinate from the purge days. He learned our fleet grammar in hours and improved it. The capital shuddered as a Krell dreadnought clawed through the outer shields, its plasma lances carving toward the citadel. Kilara rose. Authority incarnate. 7th Fleet, full mobilization. I institute unified command, Captain Vale as tactical adjunct. All vessels form the crown phalanx under my direct link. Murmurs rippled, orthodoxy cracking like thin ice, including a human in sacred fleet rite. Yet the holomap told truth. Jonah's nodes held, buying time. She overrode objections with a glare, neural crown pulsing edicts to every captain. Jonah didn't pause, juggling dreadnought trajectories while bonding his team via quick, empathetic check-ins. Hold steady. Your angles are gold. We've got overlap on my mark. Lyrathi gunners, exhausted from endless drills, found renewed rhythm in his calm optimism, their precision strikes dovetailing human creativity's chaotic flair. High above, the 7th Fleet coalesced, Lyrathi's towering battlecruisers, engines thrumming with ancestral fury. interlocked with Jonah's guerrilla feints. Krell boarders teleported into the lower spires, but Jonah anticipated, rerouting security drones with pattern-linked predictions. Kilara watched him endure, 16 hours without pause, eyes bloodshot yet sharp, while her officers flagged fatigue warnings. His resilience wasn't show, it was simply how humans worked, pushing through crisis with grounded hope. The turning point came at the rift's heart. Krell flagship surged, weapons priming for Citadel strike. Jonah's voice cut through comms. Empress, Lance is on my grid. Human overcharge protocol, your capacitors can take it. She authorized, Crown affirming. Lyrithi power grids, built for sustained glory, fused with Terran impulse bursts. A novel hybrid that overloaded the Krell shields in a cascade failure. The enemy behemoth erupted, debris scattering like shattered stars. Silence fell in the command spire as the last skirmishers fled into warp. Cheers erupted, scales shimmering victory hues. Lybex bowed deeply. Captain, your integration saved us. We dismissed humans as fleeting primitives. This is artistry. Kilara deactivated the alarms, turning to the assembled court feeds. Varos's faction watching remotely, faces ashen. She summoned him by a neural link, his hologram materializing, defiant, yet cornered. High Minister Varos, your purity invited this blade to our throat. Your machinations end now. Empress, the invasion proves it. The Union dilutes. Silence. A rebuke thundered, Crown amplifying imperial will. By edict I recognize interspecies offspring as full heirs, legitimizing our bond. Challenge it, and face treason's full measure. Varos's hologram flickered, allies deserting in the feeds. The court, witnessing salvation, bowed in waves. Hours later, in the grand audience hall, crystal vaults aglow under restored shields, Kilara stood upon the dais. Jonah flanked her. Their children. Little Ilara with her father's steady eyes and Lyrithi luminescence, and Kai with Kilara's sharp crest, clutched at their legs. The assembly hushed, clergy and nobles arrayed in splendor. Behold, Kilara proclaimed, voice resonant with unyielding strength, propriety laced with newfound warmth. Captain Jonah Vale, my consort, architect of our victory. Our heirs, bridges of empires. We declare shared governance. His merit tempers my crown. Our rule intertwined. Jonah knelt briefly to the children, whispering encouragement, his humility bridging the vast hall. Ilara giggled, reaching for a noble's trailing robe, innocent pack bonding that softened rigid postures. The court stirred, amazement dawning. This human, one ceremonial trinket, had forged their shield. High Minister Varos, under guard, knelt last. I yield, Empress. The valor witness demands it. Kilara nodded, then addressed all. The court ratifies joint authority. Vale's council seat permanent, succession revised to merit entwined with blood. I retain the cerulean crown, but proclaim the doctrine of equal forge, strength born not alone, but allied. Applause swelled, genuine scales flashing respect. Silara approached Jonah post-ratification. Crest bowed. Captain, your tactics. We studied human archives post-breach, endurance beyond our cycles, patterns we never saw. Teach us. Gladly, Jonah said, smiling faintly, unaware how extraordinary his normal seemed. But your phalanx precision? That's the backbone. We learned together. Kilara watched, hand brushing his. A private connection amid public triumph. Shadows of Varos's remnants lingered, but the purge's fire had tempered them unbreakable. She was born to rule, and learned that true power was finding an equal. In his quiet competence, her empire found not dilution, but depth.